Yeah. Well, my name is Bill, and this is for Diane's Slice of Life. I'm going to talk to you about my fantasy football team. She wanted me to talk about the Chargers, but any fantasy football player knows that you can't really have a team that you're favorite of, since it's so much individuals that you're playing with, and too many of my opponents are on the Chargers. And our league is like a scoring league, and it's like we have running backs that score, quarterbacks that score, wide receivers that score, and we have kicking and what we call DNRs, defensive return team. Well, see, most of my biggest opponents is good players are on the Chargers. I mean, Neutron means, like that guy kills us. And that's one of the reasons I can't. Drew Brees, that guy kills us. I can't be favorite of those guys, even though it's a strange thing. I want the Chargers to win. I want them to do as well as they can, but I just don't want them to score. So it's kind of hard to win without scoring, but see, we are the Diamond Arrows, and the Diamond Arrows have a great fantasy football team. But our fantasy football team is what they call like in a keeper league. We have had this thing going since 1981. We outlasted the USL, we outlasted the World Football League, and all of those people. And we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the original 8 charter members still intact. It didn't even change any. Well, one of them did quit. That was the Bailiwick Battlers franchise. He quit once, but he got back into the league, even though we had a rule that if you quit, you're out. But we managed to get him back in, and he was very happy that we did, because when he was out, for the 3 years he was out, he was miserable. Because these things are great. It's just based on owning players. Fantasy football players know. Like when Priest Holmes went down last year, I almost died. I mean, he was my guy. He was carrying us all the way, and not only did he go down, it's like it was an injury that threatened to end his whole career. And I'll bet you every fantasy football player that had Priest Holmes, man, felt some of the same kind of thing that I felt. But the main thing with me is I was really close for winning the whole thing. I would have won the whole thing had Priest Holmes healthy, but it wasn't so much about me. I was really sorry that he had to get injured, because he would have broken the record. He was going for a touchdown per season record, and he would have broken it. He would have broken it easily. And he was splendid, a great guy to have. But, like we have 8 franchises, and each franchise had players that probably feel, like I feel like Priest Holmes last year particularly was my best. And people have people like Marshall Faulk, whom I wish I had. And people like that you just, you really love to see the guy play. It's an added bonus if you really like the way your player plays, and he's on your team too. I mean, some of the guys on my team I don't really even like, but it just makes sense to have them.
Well, how do you pick the players for each person's team, and when?
We have an annual draft. Our draft usually takes place like the Saturday before the first game. This year it's going to be a little different. It's going to be on a Wednesday, because the first game is on a Thursday. But we do that so that most of our people can get all the information that they need right up to the last minute, because some guys that you see in preseason you think you might want, they don't even make the team. So, you don't want somebody on your team that's not even there. But so that's why we wait. We wait until the very last minute, and we do pretty well that way. With the people that have the experience of playing as well as long as our people, we can get our draft over, I'd say in an hour and a half at the most. But our league is really lucky. We have a commissioner that is, he's so gung-ho and brilliant in his application of rules and keeping very good track of what's going on in the league, and a very helpful person. I mean, he is going to try to legislate all the rules that might be broken, or if there's a controversial play, even though we're really democratic. have all the people vote if there's something that really comes up that they have to agree on.
Well,
But,
like what?
well, like, for instance, a play that would happen. Say a play bounced off one guy and fell into another guy's hand, and it was a defensive play that the guy returned it or whatever. It's up to the members to determine really how they want to play that. And ultimately, when it comes right down to it, the commission decides which one was right or wrong.
Well, is the play actual in an NFL game?
It has been. I can give you a few, but it would date me.
Or do you just make them up, make the plays up, or how do you decide what the plays are?
This is based on the football game. All of them based on the football game.
The actual football game.
The actual football game.
And whoever's player was involved in that.
And the actual players. And I own players like from the Green Bay Packers now. If my guy scores, my team scores.
Oh, gotcha.
See, that's the way it goes. A guy named, well, just take Brett Favre from the Green Bay Packers. He belongs to Richard, which I hate. But anyway, Brett Favre throws a touchdown pass. He gets 5 points. Well, the guy catching the touchdown pass gets 5 points. Now, if somebody owns, whoever owns either one of them gets the points on their team. And then we add up all the scores at the end of the week, and the top 4 people in points win, and the bottom 4 lose. And that's the way we tell. My team, for instance, last year was 13-3.
13 wins.
13 wins, 3 losses.
Did you win the whole thing?
No.
Who won?
Richard. He was also 13-3. But in the last weeks when my major running back went down, and it wasn't just one guy. I had 5 major people go down in the last week, and that really sort of cost me the chance of winning. But Richard and my team were so close all year. I bet you look at the stats, and there's not a whit of difference between them, except that he ended up winning the whole thing by 40 points.
All right, give everybody's name and everybody's football team.
I hope I can remember.
All right, you're Billy, and your team is?
My team is the Diamond Arrows. And another team is the Addams family. Richard's team are the Rockells. We always said that sort of sounded like halftime entertainment, but that's from another time. But, the other team, Dean Lockman, he just calls himself Dean. There's the last name.
Team Dean.
Team Dean, and then there's David. He just calls himself David. The Chevis Rocks, that's another.
And who owns that one?
That's owned by my friend Tom. And who am I missing? Oh yeah, the commissioner himself. How many we could include the commissioner himself? That's the Army Warriors, and that belongs to a good friend Haig. Yeah, the Army Warriors. That's short for Armenian Warriors. So, and they are an absolutely gung-ho, splendid fantasy football player because they love their team. They're one of the few teams, like the Diamond Arrows, that they played year-round. They never give up. We're on the phone talking year-round. The other guys, some of them can't even remember their teams, but it teaches on. Heck and I just loved the game, and we love to play it. We love to talk about it, and he's actually extremely animated, and really hits.
What year?
Because of him, we're on the internet. We have our own site, and
the site is?
Well, it's a good question. I don't play it very much because I can't access it that easily, and it's kind of complicated, the numbers. But
it's
just
a private site.
Yeah, it's a private site. I don't mind giving you the number if I remember it, but I don't because I have a hard time playing it. But it's great. He's done that and got it all up. So we have the results and everything up on the site. Well, probably by Tuesday morning, after the Monday night football game. All the results are on, the winners, losers.
And who does the posting and the track keeping?
Well, we have, Richard is the finance manager, see. David maintains the computer program and all that stuff, and he and Haig. And all 3 of those guys coordinate scores and results so that to make sure that there's no mistakes. I am the chairman of the competition committee, and I'm the waiver wire commissioner. Well, the waiver wire commissioner is an important job because guys have to bid on certain players that they might want to acquire. So
Does it require money to bid? Do you have to buy?
Are you kidding?
Well,
Of course it does. It used to be that the money was unlimited. But I mean, it was getting into stratospheric amounts. So we limited it to, you could make 12 acquisition moves during the year and spend only $60 though.
Per move?
No, you can. The least that you could spend is $3. You can spend from $3 up to $60 if you wanted to on one move.
What is it based on? Somebody else's bidding?
Guys you might want to acquire. Say you see a guy in the middle of the season that nobody has. Say, just a name. Say you have Lorenzo Neal.
Right.
And nobody has Lorenzo Neal. Well, you think the guy's a pretty good player. So that week you put in a bid. Well, the waiver wire commissioner is a little bit stressed on that one because technically he has to have his bid in so that he can open up the waiver wire. But until he has his bid in, nobody else can bid. That's so that I can get a fair chance. But I try to have the bid in as soon as possible because we're pretty quick in making our decisions. So if we want to put a bid on somebody, we seal it in an envelope and send it to the commissioner. So then the waiver wire can be opened. Then the commissioner can't open it until after the bidding period, which is from the end of the Monday night game to Friday at 5 o'clock. And that is sacrosanct. If you go 1 minute after 5, forget it. You can't bid. But up until that time, anybody can bid.
Does everybody know what's in the envelope or who
Nobody
you're trying
knows.
to bid on?
I'm the only one who knows what's there.
Okay.
That's just to clear it. You know, I put my bids down, and then anybody else can bid. They can bid on the same player.
But they don't know that you're bidding.
They don't know that I'm bidding.
Do you have to drop a player in order to acquire one?
You have to drop a player to acquire one.
Your discretion as to whom to drop?
Yes.
Does it have to be a quarterback for a quarterback or what?
It's not that way. It's not a quarterback for a quarterback. It's just that you have to maintain a 33-man roster, okay? You can only have 4 starting quarterbacks. That's number one. You can only have 3, rather, we had it at 4, but it is now 3 kicking situations, or kickers. And you can only have 3 DNR situations. Those are finite. You can't ever, so in other words, if you were to drop a DNR and we're down to 2, you'd have to replace that DNR. It is a rule.
Okay, those are your minimums?
Those are your minimums.
But it's not 4 starting quarterback minimums.
No, well, yes. You can only have 4 starting quarterbacks. Say you had quarterbacks on 2 teams. Say you had Drew Brees and who was the guy? Doug Flutie behind him, all right? Say Doug Flutie gets traded from San Diego to Baltimore. That gives you 5 starting quarterback situations. You have to drop someone. It is at your discretion. You have to not just someone. You have to drop a quarterback situation because you're only allowed 4. See, and if 2 of your guys are on the same team and another guy's traded to another team, you can choose, but you can only have 4. You have to drop one of those situations. But other than that, it's just a basic rule of you have to have a basic team. And a basic team is 6 receivers, 4 running backs, 4 quarterbacks, 3 DNRs, and 3 kicking. And as long as you got the basic team, you can do whatever you want around that, except in those limited situations that I told you about. Like running backs, you can have as many as you want, and receivers, you can have as many.
Or as many as you can afford.
As many as you can afford. It's not generally a good idea to have too many, say receivers, because I don't mean too many. It's just more, say, than running backs, because running backs tend to be more important in our scheme of things. We sort of made a mistake of having the running backs be much more important. They're almost twice as much in their scoring points than anybody else. And that's sort of a mistake, but nobody wants to change it, so we just keep it that way. So that makes running backs, though, extremely important. In fact, we've been playing this thing since 1981, and I'll bet you like 89% of the time the person with the best running backs won the whole thing. And that is an indication that we've gotten as bad, but it works pretty well. I
Who
mean,
had
it works
the
for us
idea
really
to start this? I think y'all started it before anybody else was doing it.
It was very, very early. A guy named Don King. No, not him.
Not the promoter.
Not the guy with the hair, but another guy named Don King came over and says he's got this interesting game, and he just sort of preached it to us, and he really was the one who started. He had seen it in like some of the pro football magazines, and read all, sent off for the rules, got the rules, read them to all of us, and we were real gung-ho. Like I said, though, 5 of the charter members are still there. He was one of the charter members. He's no longer there. In fact, he quit very early because he thought, basically, I think he thought it was too cutthroat. That was when $50 for an acquisition.
Well, what would happen to the money at the end of the season?
Oh, we split it up. In those days, we were splitting the money up. The person who finished first was getting 50%. The person who finished second was getting 30%, something like that, down the line. To a 4-player, in the beginning it was only a 3-player payoff, but now we have it to a 4-player payoff because mainly it's not the money. It's just that people enjoy this thing. You don't want to gouge somebody trying to play a game.
Because they're your friends. They're your
friends.
Yeah,
and it's better anyway just to play the game. It's important to play the game, and you don't want somebody intimidated because somebody is richer than they is and they can afford more money and can afford to spend it.
Well, does money
Even though I didn't have anything, and I always spent whatever I wanted to because money was never the...
Does money actually pass hands to the person who handles the money at the very beginning, or is it on paper?
The commissioner will not let you participate if you don't have your monies paid up before the season starts. He is absolutely adamant about that, and he has his gavel to rule on it and everything. He will sound the gavel on you in a second for that, quicker than anything.
Well, where do y'all meet?
Meet at the commissioner's house usually because he's got it set up there. That's sort of traditional now.
Do you meet during the season or just at the beginning and the end?
Just before the beginning of the season. And on that, like I said, this year's Wednesday, before the beginning of the Thursday football season. His wife and his daughter, they make all kinds of food, and we sort of pay into it, but of course, but they make it all, and they host the whole thing. It's really quite a ball. It's really great. I love it. I just absolutely love it. See, and I was responsible for getting Hagen. I told him what it was all about, and he wasn't interested, but this league is so much better because he's in it, because of his enthusiasm and diligence in doing the work and everything that has to be done. He's just great. I just love the whole thing myself. And when I've won it 3 times, and one of the times that I won, the payoff for me, I think I won $1,450. Because, all the trades and acquisitions and all of that thing goes into the pool, too. So it comes up, that total pool. And so in those days, the first place finisher was getting 50%. There was one year I won over $1,400 just playing that game. And this year, let's see, I think I won like $360, which is enough to pay my total fees, acquisition fees, trade fees, and everything for the next year. Totally. I don't have to put anything in. It's already on file. I'm already paid up. I'm good, in good standing with the commissioner, you might say. But so is the commissioner. I mean, I think he has his up too, And I think Richard does too because he won and he just sort of left it on file. Now, Richard is a very good finance manager. He keeps very good, close track of that. And the monies are always there. The monies are always paid. And, we generally will meet after the season is over, trying to coordinate it with some times. A lot of us play poker together too, so we try to coordinate it with some of the poker games. And it's generally, you should have seen the time when the Army Warriors won. He came dressed as Haig the Conqueror. He had his big helmet on with the horns, the Viking horns and all that, the fur over jacket, and the big tall boots. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Haig the Conqueror. He came in and just blew everybody away. And we have this trophy. We have renamed it. It wasn't named, actually. We named it when Alan died, to the Alan Lockman Memorial Trophy. And
well, now he was a fantasy player for
he was a
years
fantasy
and
lover.
years.
I tried to get him involved in a league, but at the time he was living up in Goleta, and it was hard for him. But we could have done it over the phone or over the computer, but he didn't seem to really want to do it, I guess, because he didn't. And it was too bad, because Alan was one of the most competitive people I've ever known. And he would have loved it too, I think. I don't really know, I think, but apparently he just didn't have enough interest to do it. And it's too bad he didn't. But we got good people to replace, you know, to play it anyway when somebody else quit. There were a couple of people that were in there, and, you know, a couple of teams have partners. And the partner, sort of, they have to have one main partner so he can do all the speaking. He can't sit there and argue between both of them at the table and have every one of them, you know, both of them count. It has to be one of them making a decision. And now 2 or 3 people have partners. And it's good in a way, because if that person ever drops out, the partner can almost just take over. They know pretty much about what's going on with all of it. Now we have split the money up a little bit different. I think the person finishing first gets like 45%, and first person finishing second get 25%, and 15% for third, and 10% for fourth. So that's just so that everybody makes.
What about a defense? Are there no defense teams?
That's what I have been calling DNRs.
Oh, excuse me. Go into the defense team.
That means defense and return, and all of that means is that you choose a whole team for that. And if they score a touchdown on a fumble, interception, you know, anything that the defense scores is counted for pretty good points. They call special teams points, as you call them. That's 10 points apiece. Say the 49ers are my team, and the 49ers are on defense, and they throw a pass, the 49ers intercept the running back for a touchdown. Well, see, I get 10 points for that.
What do you mean if the 49ers are my team?
That's what I mean.
Do you buy a whole team?
You do. On defense, you have a whole team.
But just one team?
One team. Well, we have 3.
You have 3 teams?
3 defensive teams.
For 3 truly defensive NFL teams.
Right. 3 defensive teams.
All right. This year, what are your 3 defensive teams?
Well, so far, but without dropping anything, but I'm going to drop some of them. But my defensive teams are Buffalo, Dallas, and Indianapolis. And the only one that I'm going to keep, I think, is Dallas. The Buffalo and Indianapolis ones. I want to keep Indianapolis, but because of Tony Dungy, and Tony Dungy will make a difference with their defense, but they don't ever seem to be a really good DNR team historically. And like I said, we played this game since 1981, so you get an idea of some pretty good defensive teams, like some pretty good defensive teams out there, like my favorites, Cleveland. Chicago used to be excellent. They aren't the same.
Cowboys?
The Cowboys are good too. They are. They have been pretty much. That's why they're the one DNR that I have that I don't want to drop. I may be forced to, because in order to start the draft, you have to cut 7 players off your team. You have to set 7 players or positions off your team.
In the defensive?
No, just to start the draft. This is your whole team.
Okay.
And though most people would choose to cut the defensive teams because they want to get more shots at running backs and quarterbacks. You know, and the DNRs don't score nearly as much.
What about the Chargers for defense?
That's where they're going to hurt. I think they're going to probably be. They were good for me. I had them for a long time for DNR. They were really a good DNR team. I hated to give them up, but I got a real good trade out of it. But they were really good for a defensive team. But they're not. It isn't just because they're a good defensive team. It's because they have a good return man sometimes. See, that counts too. You get it for kickoff returns and punt returns and all that stuff. So that counts too. You got a good, when Deion Sanders was on Dallas, that was a great team to have, because the guy would grab the ball and run it back several times a year, you know, and that's very valuable, because that's the kind of thing you get out of a DNR team. You might get 4 of those a year, actually, out of your whole team, and that's not good, but Here comes Sanders by himself, he scores 4 by himself, so that makes Dallas very valuable. Well, that's the kind of thing you look for too. Teams with good return people and teams with good defense. And it's hard to tell because you can never. A DNR is the most surprising thing there is. When that happens, there is almost no way to predict it. You know, it just jumps up, and there you are. You have a DNR, and that's why it's so good when you get them. You know, but it adds to your score. I mean, your overall weekly score, and that's what you look for. If you don't get good scoring in all the categories, all 5 categories, you generally don't score high enough to win. And so balance is extremely important. Your team it's got to have good running backs, got to have good quarterbacks. You can't get beaten badly in any one category at all, I don't care what it is, and win, or even finish in the top 4. But it's really important. That's what you shoot for. You try for good running backs, good quarterbacks, good receivers, and so forth.
All right. So if one of your quarterbacks gets laid out with an injury, do you have to automatically lay them off, or can you keep them hoping they'll come back?
No, we have a rule that we just instituted. In fact, this hasn't even come into play. We just made the rule. It's the injury reserve rule. If one of your guys go out, you can put him on IR. But that means if he's on IR, he can absolutely not play that year.
What is IR?
Injury reserve. If he's on injury reserve, you have to, he can't come back and play that year. If he does, he gets thrown back into the common pool for the next year's draft or acquisition pool for that year.
So then you have the option of going in and bidding on another quarterback.
You have that option. And in our league now, since the league has 32 teams, everybody can have 4 starting quarterbacks. It hadn't been that way all the time. When it was 28 teams, a couple of people would get left off from having 4 starting quarterbacks. And it's really important to have that because, you know, like one week, one of your quarterbacks gets totally shut out. Well, you hope that that's the week your other quarterback has a good time, you know, a good game. And that's why you need it. And if you don't have them, if you have 3 quarterbacks instead of 4, you tend to come up a little short because quarterbacks score more than anybody. I mean, with more frequency. I don't mean more points necessarily, but with more frequency than almost anybody, except maybe kickers. But, you know, it's really important to have good quarterbacks, 4 of them, not just 3, because it leaves you a little bit short. And being that kind of short, it kind of leaves you at a disadvantage. Remember, I told you can't get beaten badly in one category. And if you end up leaving yourself short, then you're going to get beaten badly in that category, and you probably wouldn't have a chance to finish in the top 4. It just works out that way. We didn't think it would, but it just happened to work out that way. And I mean, over the 20-whatever years we've been doing this thing, it just seems to be that way. And most of the guys are pretty stable. The biggest problem we have, we're all pretty selfish. We all try to legislate rules and things to fit our own situation, but some of us more than others. And yet, Haig, and I think me too, being the competition commissioner and the waiver wire commissioner, our interest is the league, really. We don't care about individual things. If the league is healthy, we figure we're going to be, you know, our whole team will be. But it's some people don't think that way. They want to legislate a rule just to fit their own situation.
All right, if they want to legislate a rule, what's the process?
The process is talking it up, politics, talking it up, then we have a vote. And then I'm in charge of that vote. Bailey, Haig, and I were the competition committee. I usually am the person that does the polling, but I will tell everybody the situation and we vote. And whatever the vote comes down, then that's what it is. Most of the time, I'm on the other end of it. People don't tend to agree with me too much, but that's democracy anyway. At least we get what the majority wants. But the problem is that we have some people that have the experience of working together for years. They see each other all the time, and so consequently they're talking to each other all the time, and consequently there's a big power block vote there, you know, of 2 or 3 people who work and talk and have the same ideas about how to proceed. And so they get a lot of what they want done because of that. It's just politics. But the guys that are usually the ones that are on the outside, me, Haig, and Bailey, we're the ones that are generally not. We can't take the view for the league more than the personal view, and yet there's nothing we can do except talk it around, and if we can't convince the other guys, it's just not going to go, no matter how bad a rule it is, and we have made some pretty damn bad rules. I must say that we try to correct them wherever we can, and you can't always tell what's going to happen. You can't always tell. Some things come up, man, it's just like incredible, but that's what I do. That's my job. I try to look at things and see what might possibly happen, and then suggest a correction before it does. And so many times it's been a situation that they voted down, and then later on it came back to haunt them. And I, pointed it out that it could be that kind of a problem. But then they don't have any interest until it affects them, and then they have the interest. And I tried to point it out when it would have been of interest to everybody, but a couple of things like that. But most of the time, guys try to cooperate, and we don't always do the right thing. We don't always make the right rules, but we do try to make it fair all the time, and whenever it's that way, then we tend to correct those rules that we haven't done right. But we started out with 2 pages. Now we have a rule book that's that thick. I mean, but, it's like Ed says, so many things that we just talked about. We just talked about and thought they were a rule. Well, they weren't written down, and that's what he does.
So if they weren't written down, they're not a rule.
They're not really a rule, and that's what he does. Everything that we can think about, he makes sure it's written down.
What are the requirements for someone who wants to join your fantasy football league?
Oh, well, they have to pay me $2 million to start. After that, no, not really. It's like... basically, we wanted 8 people, and these guys, I don't mind expanding. It just seems like the league does, because every time it comes up, they vote to keep the 8 people. So first of all, there has to be an opening, and
so
other than that,
that's the limit, 8 people.
Yeah, 8 people. And he doesn't mind expanding, but so far on the last 2 votes, man, they voted that down quickly. They don't want to expand. And like I said, one time Fred quit, and I tried to talk him out of that. But Fred, he's pretty stubborn about things, and if you try to talk him out of it, he's going to want to do the opposite thing. So he quit, and it took a lot for them to let him back in. Man, I had to go around and just say, well, Fred.
Why wouldn't they want to let him back in?
Because it was a rule.
Once you're out, you're out.
You're out. That's what they say. That's what it was.
What's
it was a rule.
the purpose of that rule?
The rule was just so that people wouldn't willy-nilly just say, well, everything's gone bad for me, I quit. That kind of thing, And if you did that, if you were that kind of person, we didn't want you back. And that was basically why it was.
Have you ever thought of expansion?
All the time, but like I said, they don't want to expand. We voted on them the last 3 years in a row, and they voted it down.
Are there people who want to get in?
Yeah, oh yeah. Richard, for instance, has a partner. His name is David Gross? I think, anyway, Gross is his last name. And so does this other guy, the Addams family. He has a partner, and so does the Shepherd's Rocks.
But they're not members. They're just partners through the initial person's membership. And they don't vote. Just the.
They don't vote, and the commissioner has a rule they can't even sit at the table.
Oh, that's mean.
They have to sit behind their owner. I mean, their primary owner. They cannot have a seat at the table.
So could a member have more than one co-owner?
I suppose they could.
Like a syndicate?
I suppose they could. It's never happened before.
No rule against.
No rule against that. It's never happened before, but the same thing would be somebody would have to be the primary designate owner. And you can have as many people as you want behind you, I suppose. But they can't have any say, and they can't even sit at the table. Not they can't. they're knocked out of the food and the refreshments, but they just can't.
They have no power except through the designated owner.
Exactly.
Designated owner.
And in fact, one of our members, Larry, the Adams family, he had his partner sitting next to him at the table. Well, the commissioner didn't say anything at the meeting because he didn't want to gum up the workers. But after that meeting, he went and told Larry, "Now, Larry, I want you to get this straight. You can have as many partners as you want, but he can't sit at the table. And I want you to understand that. He cannot sit at the table anymore. Now, we won't let that go by the next time." He is amazing. I call him Herr Kommissar. Because that's the way he runs the ship, but he runs on top.
But the group that you've got are generally people that you've known and have bonded with for many years.
For many, many years.
It's a very tight group.
Many, many years.
Like Richard, you met
mostly
in college,
40 years.
Right?
40 years.
You met Richard and Fred in college.
Richard, Fred in college, and Haig also when I was in college.
At San Diego State.
Yeah. And
class
with Dean. You know, like Dean was
what
mostly...
class?
My class?
Yeah.
66.
All right.
Class of 66.
San Diego State University.
I remember Alan Lockwood and I standing there going, when they said, "And now you are graduates from San Diego State University with Bachelor of Arts and Science degrees, with all the rights and privileges ascertaining thereto." And Alan and I went, "Rah, rah, rah." And I thought that was funny. And then, though, it was even when I could move my tassel from one side to the other, it was all right. I kind of liked it.
You earned it.
It was categorically the best experience of my whole life. Go to college.
And the friends you made.
And the friends I made.
And you met my brother in college.
You know, there's something that it's very. I'm not a hangout type person. I don't hang out with anybody. John came about as close to a person I would hang out with as anybody. We used to hang out a lot, actually. You know, I'd have dinner, he'd invite me over, I'd invite him over. But that's the only person I can remember that I sort of almost had a hangout relationship with.
John's special.
Yeah, he really was.
Yeah.
Really was. And I, you know, so many times I remember I look back and there was John and I doing something together, you know, just here and there. It's amazing. It's great. It's why you guys moving back there because North Carolina, I really missed you. I thought that was a shame. I was going, both of you gone. You went first and then he went after. And I really missed both of you. And, you know, I'm a pretty, I don't know, people say that if you get me settled down, you have to pry me out with a crowbar. That's the kind of person I am usually, but sometimes it's just special. But that's about it. I can't think of anything more to tell you.
You have 7 more minutes.
7 more minutes? My God, it sounds like this machine.
You have 7 more minutes. How about the time that you had me do the banner for you?
I just thought of that
for the Chargers.
I just
You were a diehard Charger fan.
Yeah, you know, and it was funny. That was when Tim Rosovich was playing with them. And you made that banner.
You called me up.
Yeah, and I told you to make it up.
And you said, "I will pay you. If you'll make a banner, I will even give you the sheet. And here's what I want you to put on it," and that was?
San Diego Chargers, weird ball champions of the world.
And I did it.
You did it, and it was a great
But you
banner.
didn't go to the game.
And I had started to hate the Chargers playing and doing what they did so badly.
What was it they were doing?
They were playing weird ball.
What does that mean?
Oh, it's like, Diane, it's like they would do things like that, make plays you never saw, like guys fumbling the ball away in the most illogical, unlikely situation. They'll ever be running out in the middle of the field and just drop the ball, you know. They just would do things like that, and it would just drive you crazy.
And what year was this? Like 70, 69?
Now, this was
71?
Probably 70 and 71, I think. And you told me that it got on TV.
You sent it to the game with somebody.
Well, see, I went out there. That's what I was telling you. I went out there to the game because I wanted to sell my tickets. I had season tickets, and I wanted to sell them. And this guy comes by, and I said, hey, man, you want to buy a couple of tickets? And he looked at me and gave me this real Artura hard look.
Oh, God.
And I said, now, what the fuck is the matter with him? And it turned out it was Tim Rosovich. It was the Chargers middle linebacker. And he thought I was making fun of him. You know, really. He thought I was making fun of him, but then he thought I was just this guy that didn't know who he was at the time, and he got this big grin, you know. But, what is wrong with him? What did I do? You know, but it was Rosovich, and he really thought I was making fun of him. But then I sold the tickets and gave it to this guy. I said, I'll sell you the tickets for this price. I gave him a really cheap price if you will hang this banner. And the guy said, I'll do it. And he did. He hung the banner, and you told me you saw it. It's in the archive somewhere.
It hit.
It's on
NFL Today.
Films.
I was watching.
Yeah.
I always watched every week, and that was before the live broadcast of the football games and the big sports commentators afterwards and the whole hurrah. And all we had was NFL Today once a week of the major plays, right?
Yep, that's right.
And I sat down like I did every week, and I watched it. And they panned at the San Diego Stadium and stopped on the sign.
Yep.
And zoomed in.
And they said...
I don't remember.
They said...
Gosh.
I forget the team they were playing, but now we go to a game with a team that has a championship all its own.
And then they go to our banner.
And they go to our banner.
And it was cool, and I did weird ball and like electrifying lettering.
Right.
Those were the days. Bill.
And you know, that's on NFL film somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Billy, you've got 3 more minutes to say anything that you want about anything that you wish.
Well,
3 minutes.
Geez, can I read you one of my poems, my favorite?
I would love that.
I think that I sent it to John.
I would love that.
My poem, you name me poet, who only dreamer be, but by naming you demand this poem of me. I be only a dreamer who dream of things of old, of witches and unicorns and the magic they unfold. But what can a dreamer tell a poet? Perhaps the roles he plays, of hours that cling like cold fire, of minutes that pass like days. No, for you know these as well as he, and all you dreamed was that you be free to write the song of eternity, to float like mist above the sea, to die like a dragon beyond the shore, to gaze on bright Atlantis just once more, when poet and dreamer both shall heed the call, to stride into the karmic hall, when Aslan causes the stars to fall, to close now behind us. That's it. Probably got a few more minutes to go. I sent that to John, I think, a long time ago, but I wrote so badly in those days, I probably wrote it all over the page. It was just, it's my favorite poem that I ever wrote, really. I'm really a lyric poet. I have a lot of poems, but that's the one I like the best, I think.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Diane.